On a cool spring afternoon in the bustling village of Glenwick, a young boy named Finn scurried through the cobbled streets clutching a fresh loaf of bread. He had saved up all week to purchase it as a surprise for his family. As he darted past vendors and shopkeepers, he caught sight of an old woman huddled in the shadow of a stone wall, her gnarled hands cupped together in silent plea. Her gray hair framed a face lined with the weariness of time, and her tattered cloak did little to shield her from the chill. Finn hesitated. His stomach growled, a reminder of the meager meals he had endured lately. Yet the sight of the woman stirred something deeper within him. Without a word, he stepped forward and extended the loaf of bread toward her. She looked up, her watery eyes locking onto his with surprise, then gratitude. Taking the bread with trembling hands, she whispered a heartfelt thank you. Her voice carried the weight of countless unspoken stories. Finn smiled and nodded, then turned and hurried home. He arrived to find his mother, Mara, and younger sister, Lila, tending to their modest garden. Mara raised an eyebrow when she noticed his empty hands, but Finn simply shrugged. "I saw someone who needed it more," he said. Though his mother sighed, she couldn't hide her smile of quiet pride. The days passed uneventfully until the morning when a knock at the door disrupted their routine. Finn opened it to find a man clad in a finely embroidered tunic. His deep green eyes seemed to pierce right through Finn, and a faint smile played on his lips. "Greetings," the man said. "I am Calder. May I come in?" Myra appeared behind Finn, wiping her hands on her apron. She studied the stranger warily, but nodded. Calder stepped inside, his boots clicking against the wooden floor. Once seated, he began. "I bring news and a request. Days ago, a generous act occurred in this village, an act that did not go unnoticed." Finn's heart raced as Calder's gaze settled on him. "A boy gave away his bread to a woman in need," Calder continued. "That woman was my mother." The room fell silent. Calder's expression softened as he added, "She spoke of your kindness with great admiration. I have come to repay that debt." Myra glanced at Finn, her mouth opening to speak, but Calder raised a hand. "Please, allow me to explain. My mother's circumstances were not always as you saw. She fell on hard times after leaving the comforts of our estate. I searched for her for months. Because of your son's compassion, I was able to find her and bring her home." Finn's cheeks flushed. "I didn't do it for a reward," he stammered. Calder chuckled warmly, "And that is precisely why you deserve one." With a wave of his hand, Calder summoned 2 servants waiting just outside. They carried in a chest brimming with goods, fine fabrics, jars of preserves, loaves of bread, and even a pouch of coins. Myra gasped, her hand flying to her chest. "This is too much," she protested. "It is but a fraction of what your son's kindness is worth," Calder replied firmly, "and there is more. I have a proposition for Finn." Finn blinked in surprise. "For me?" "Yes," Calder said. "I run a large estate beyond the hills. It thrives, but I have been seeking someone to train in the ways of stewardship, a role requiring integrity and compassion. If you are willing, Finn, I would like to take you on as my apprentice." The words hung in the air like a spell. Finn glanced at his mother, whose expression shifted from shock to contemplation. "It is a great opportunity," she said softly, though her voice trembled. Finn swallowed hard. The thought of leaving his family tugged at his heart, but the chance to learn and grow was undeniable. "I'll do it," he said, his voice steady. Calder's face lit up. "Excellent, we leave at first light." True to his word, Calder arrived early the next morning, and Finn bade a tearful farewell to his family. The journey to Calder's estate was long but fascinating. Finn marveled at the rolling hills, dense forests, and sparkling rivers that unfolded before him. When they finally arrived, he was awestruck by the sprawling manor and its surrounding farmland. Calder wasted no time in introducing Finn to his duties. The boy learned to oversee crop rotations, manage livestock, and mediate disputes among workers. Though the work was demanding, Finn approached it with determination. Calder proved to be a patient and wise mentor, and the two developed a bond akin to father and son. Meanwhile, back in Glenwick, Myra and Lila found their lives transformed by Calder's gift. With the coins, Myra repaired their cottage and expanded their garden. She began baking bread to sell at the market, her reputation for quality quickly spreading. Lila, inspired by Finn's courage, took to helping others in the village, often visiting the elderly and delivering food to those in need. Months turned into years, and Finn grew into a confident young man. Under Calder's guidance, he became a skilled steward, beloved by the workers for his fairness and humility. One day, Calder called him into his study. "Finn," he began, "I have been observing you closely. You are ready to take on greater responsibility." Finn furrowed his brow. "What do you mean?" Calder leaned forward. "I am appointing you as steward of my estate. It is a role I once filled myself, but the time has come for me to step back. You have earned this." The weight of the words settled on Finn's shoulders, but he nodded resolutely. "I won't let you down." Calder smiled. "I know you won't." As steward, Finn excelled, implementing innovations that increased productivity and improved the lives of the workers. His fame spread beyond the estate, and neighboring landowners sought his advice. Yet despite his success, Finn remained humble, often reflecting on the simple act of kindness that had set his journey in motion. One bright spring morning, Finn received a letter from Myra. It was filled with news of home, of Lila's growing skill as a healer, of the thriving bakery, and of the village's gratitude for the changes Calder's generosity had sparked. The letter ended with a heartfelt message. "We miss you dearly, but we are so proud of the man you have become." Finn read the letter with a smile, his heart full. He resolved to visit Glenwick soon, eager to reunite with his family and share all he had learned. When he finally made the journey home, Finn was greeted with open arms. The village had changed in his absence, its streets livelier and its people more connected. Finn marveled at the bakery Myra had built, its shelves lined with fragrant loaves and pastries. He watched with pride as Lila tended to a child's scraped knee, her touch gentle and sure. That evening, as the family gathered around the hearth, Finn recounted his adventures and listened to theirs in turn. Laughter and love filled the room, a testament to the bonds that had endured despite the distance. As the fire crackled and the stars twinkled outside, Finn realized that his journey had come full circle. What had begun with a single loaf of bread had blossomed into a story of generosity, growth, and the enduring power of family. The warmth of the hearth mirrored the warmth in Finn's heart as he sat surrounded by his family. Each moment spent with them that evening felt like a treasure rediscovered. Finn marveled at how much had changed, yet how familiar everything remained. His mother, Myra, had grown more radiant, her strength now matched by a visible sense of purpose. Lila, once a shy girl, had blossomed into a confident and compassionate young woman whose talents were celebrated throughout Glenwick. As the night wore on, neighbors began to gather outside, drawn by the news of Finn's return. Old friends and new acquaintances filled the small yard, each eager to see the boy who had left and returned as a man of great renown. Torches and lanterns flickered, illuminating smiling faces and casting a golden glow over the gathering. The village elder, a kindly man named Torvin, raised a cup and addressed the crowd. "We celebrate tonight not just the return of our Finn, but also the spirit of kindness and community he represents. His actions remind us that even the smallest gesture can ripple outward and touch countless lives." The crowd cheered, and Finn felt his cheeks flush. He stood, clearing his throat, and the chatter hushed. "I'm humbled by your words," he began, his voice steady despite the lump forming in his throat. "But everything I've achieved began here, with all of you. The kindness, support, and lessons I learned in this village shaped me. If I've done anything worthwhile, it's because I carried this place in my heart." His words were met with applause and the clinking of cups. The celebration continued late into the night, with music, dancing, and shared stories weaving a tapestry of joy. The next morning, as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the trees, Finn found himself walking through the village alone. The streets were quiet, save for the occasional chirping of birds. He paused at the spot where he had first encountered Calder's mother years ago. The memory of her grateful smile surfaced, and Finn felt a surge of emotion. He knelt, pressing his hand to the cool stones, silently thanking her for being the catalyst that had set his life on its remarkable path. As he stood, a voice startled him. "Thinking of her, are you?" Finn turned to see Calder approaching, his green eyes glinting in the morning light. The older man had arrived in Glenwick the previous evening, though he had remained on the outskirts of the festivities. "I was," Finn admitted. "I owe her everything." Calder nodded. "We both do. My mother's life may have taken a difficult turn, but in her final years, she spoke often of how that single act of kindness gave her hope. It's why I've invested so much in you, Finn. You embody the values she cherished." The two men walked together, their conversation flowing easily. Calder shared stories of his mother's earlier life, her resilience, and the way she had inspired him to seek fairness and generosity in all his dealings. Finn, in turn, spoke of his family's transformation and his dreams for Glenwick's future. "Perhaps," Finn said thoughtfully, "there's a way to bring more opportunities to this village. The people here are resourceful and kind, but they lack the means to grow." Calder stroked his chin. "You've always had a knack for seeing potential. What do you propose?" "I'd like to establish a trade route," Finn said, his voice gaining momentum. "The bakery could supply goods to nearby towns. Lila's skills as a healer could draw more people in need of care. With some investment, Glenwick could thrive as a hub for both commerce and compassion." Calder smiled. "Ambitious, but not impossible. I'll support you in this endeavor, Finn. Consider it another investment in the legacy we both hold dear." Over the following weeks, Finn worked tirelessly to bring his vision to life. Calder provided funding and connections, while Finn coordinated with the villagers. Roads were improved, new partnerships were forged, and Glenwick's humble streets began to bustle with activity. Mara's bakery became the heart of the trade route, her goods traveling far and wide. Lila established a small clinic that grew into a beacon of hope for surrounding villages. Travelers brought stories of Glenwick's transformation, and Finn found himself at the center of a network that extended far beyond the village he called home. Despite his growing responsibilities, Finn never let his success distance him from the people who mattered most. He visited his family regularly, sharing meals, laughter, and the simple joys of life. He often took time to sit with villagers, listening to their stories and offering guidance. Years passed, and Finn's work bore fruit. Glenwick became a model for other communities, its prosperity rooted in the same values that had shaped Finn's journey: kindness, humility, and a willingness to help others. The boy who had once given away his loaf of bread was now a leader, though he never saw himself as such. One sunny morning, as Finn walked through the marketplace, he noticed a young boy standing near a fruit stall, clutching a small bundle of wildflowers. The boy's gaze lingered on a woman sitting nearby, her face worn with hardship. Finn watched as the boy hesitated, then stepped forward to offer the flowers. The woman's eyes lit up with gratitude, and Finn felt a pang of familiarity. He smiled to himself. a deep sense of contentment settling over him. Life had come full circle, yet the ripples of compassion continued to spread. In that moment, Finn knew that the story of the loaf of bread was not just his. It belonged to everyone who chose to act with kindness, no matter how small the gesture. As the sun climbed higher, Finn returned home, his heart light and his resolve strong. The seeds he had planted, both in Glenwick and beyond, would continue to grow, nurtured by the enduring power of human connection. And he, in turn, would always be ready to lend a hand, just as he had on that fateful day so many years ago. As Glenwick flourished, Finn found himself stepping into yet another role, not as a steward of an estate or a trader among villages, but as a mentor to the next generation. Children and young adults from Glenwick and neighboring towns often sought his guidance, drawn by tales of his journey and the transformative impact of his work. Finn welcomed them all, sharing not just the skills of stewardship and trade, but the values that had guided his life: empathy, humility, and the courage to make a difference. Among those who came to learn from him was a bright-eyed boy named Emery. Emery reminded Finn of himself in many ways: curious, determined, and brimming with a desire to help others. Finn took him under his wing, teaching him everything from balancing accounts to resolving disputes with fairness. But more than that, Finn encouraged Emery to look beyond tasks and numbers and see the people behind them. One afternoon, as they worked together in the bustling marketplace, Emery asked, "Finn, why do you think kindness matters so much? People can still succeed without it." Finn paused, setting down the ledger he was reviewing. He looked at Emery, his expression thoughtful. "Kindness is what gives success its meaning," he said. "It connects us to one another. Without it, we might build wealth or power, but we lose the heart of what makes life worth living. A single act of kindness, like sharing a loaf of bread, can change the course of someone's life. It can even change the world." Emery nodded slowly, the weight of Finn's words sinking in. From that day forward, the boy embraced his lessons with even greater enthusiasm, eager not just to learn, but to make a positive impact. Meanwhile, Finn's own journey continued to evolve. His connection to Calder remained strong, their partnership growing into a deep friendship. Together, they embarked on projects that expanded their influence beyond Glenwick. They supported struggling villages, built schools, and funded ventures that gave people the tools to lift themselves out of hardship. Despite his busy life, Finn never forgot his roots. He continued to visit his family often, delighting in their successes. Mayra's bakery had become a cornerstone of the community, not just for the goods it produced, but for the warmth and generosity it exuded. She often hosted gatherings where villagers could share meals and stories, fostering a sense of unity that extended beyond the marketplace. Lila's clinic, too, had grown into something remarkable. With the help of healers she had trained, she provided care to those who couldn't afford it, earning the admiration and gratitude of countless families. Finn often marveled at how his sister's quiet strength had blossomed into a force of healing and hope. One summer evening, as Finn and Lila sat together on the porch of their family home, she turned to him with a smile. "You know, Finn, I sometimes wonder if that loaf of bread you gave away was enchanted." Finn laughed. "Enchanted? Why do you say that?" "Think about it," Lila said, her eyes twinkling. "That one act set off a chain of events that changed not just our lives, but the lives of so many others. It's like magic, isn't it?" Finn considered her words, his laughter fading into a thoughtful smile. "Maybe it is," he said, "but I think the real magic was in the choice. Choosing to give, to help, even when it's not easy. That's what creates the magic." As the years rolled on, Glenwick's story became one of legend. Travelers who passed through the village often shared tales of Finn and his family, inspiring others to embrace the values that had transformed the community. Finn, ever humble, dismissed the grander embellishments of these tales, but he was glad they carried a message of hope and kindness. One day, as Finn stood at the edge of the village watching the sun set over the hills, Calder approached him. Now older and grayer, Calder still carried himself with the dignity and warmth that had marked him from the start. "It's a beautiful sight, isn't it?" Calder said, gesturing to the horizon. "It is," Finn agreed, "and it reminds me how much there still is to do." Calder smiled knowingly. "You've accomplished more than most men could in a lifetime, Finn. But I understand. The work of building and nurturing never truly ends. It's a legacy, passed from one generation to the next." Finn nodded. "I've been thinking about that lately, about how to ensure that what we've built doesn't fade away when we're gone." Calder placed a hand on Finn's shoulder. "You've already planted the seeds. People like Emery, Lila, and the villagers you've inspired, they'll carry the legacy forward. And if they falter, they'll have your example to guide them." Finn felt a deep sense of peace at Calder's words. He knew the elder man was right. The foundation had been laid, and the values that had guided his life were woven into the fabric of the community. As the years turned into decades, Finn continued to live by the principles that had shaped his journey. He remained a steward not just of land and trade, but of hearts and minds, teaching and guiding others to see the power of compassion and generosity. When Finn finally passed, his life was celebrated with a gathering that brought together people from far and wide. Stories were shared of his kindness, his wisdom, and the lasting impact of his actions. Among those in attendance was Emery, now a steward himself, who carried on Finn's work with the same integrity and compassion. In the end, Finn's story became a testament to the enduring power of kindness, a reminder that even the smallest act, like giving a loaf of bread to someone in need, can grow into something extraordinary. And so, the ripples of his generosity continued to spread, touching lives in ways he could live on for generations to come. Years after Finn's passing, the village of Glenwick remained a shining example of what a community could achieve through unity, compassion, and resilience. The marketplace bustled with activity. The bakery's warm scent wafted through the air, and Lila's clinic had expanded into a full-fledged infirmary that served the surrounding regions. Travelers spoke of Glenwick as a place of miracles, where kindness seemed to bloom in every corner. Emery, now a man, often found himself reflecting on Finn's teachings. As the steward of Calder's estate and a leader in his own right, Emery carried the lessons he had learned from Finn into every decision he made. He encouraged collaboration, sought fair solutions, and always found time to help those in need. One day, as Emery walked through Glenwick's busy streets, he noticed a young girl struggling to carry a bundle of firewood. Without hesitation, he stepped in to help. The girl, startled at first, thanked him shyly. As she turned to leave, she hesitated. "Why did you help me?" she asked. Emery smiled, hearing echoes of a question he had once asked Finn. "Because someone once helped me," he said, "and I want to pass it on." The girl nodded slowly, her small face thoughtful, before continuing on her way. Emery watched her go, feeling a familiar sense of fulfillment. He knew that kindness, like a seed, had to be planted and nurtured in every generation. It was a lesson Finn had imparted not just through his words, but through his life. As the years went by, stories of Finn became part of Glenwick's collective memory. His name was spoken with reverence, not because of the wealth or power he had accumulated, but because of the spirit he had instilled in the people around him. Children grew up hearing the tale of the boy who had given away his loaf of bread, and it became a cornerstone of the village's identity. One such child was a boy named Oron. He was curious and quick-witted, always asking questions about the world around him. One evening, as he sat by the fire with his grandmother, Myra, now elderly but as vibrant as ever, he asked, "Grandmother, do you think the story of Finn is true? Did a loaf of bread really change so much?" Mara's eyes twinkled with a mixture of nostalgia and pride. "Oh, it's true, Oran," she said. "I was there when it all began. Your great-uncle Finn was just a boy when he made that choice, but it set a chain of events in motion that none of us could have predicted. Auron frowned thoughtfully. But how could something so small make such a big difference? Myra placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Because, my dear, it wasn't just about the bread. It was about the heart behind it. Finn didn't have much, but he chose to give what he had to someone who needed it more. That choice inspired others, and those others inspired more people still. That's how the world changes, one act of kindness at a time. Auron nodded slowly, the weight of her words settling over him. Though he was still young, he felt a spark of understanding, as if a tiny seed had been planted in his heart. In the years that followed, Glenwick continued to thrive, and the values Finn had embodied remained at its core. Festivals were held to celebrate his legacy, and a stone monument was erected in the town square, bearing an inscription that read, "In memory of Finn, whose kindness taught us that even the smallest act can change the world." Generations came and went, but the story of Finn and the loaf of bread endured. It was told not just in Glenwick, but in villages and towns far beyond, inspiring countless people to look beyond their own needs and extend a hand to others. And so, the ripples of Finn's single act of kindness spread outward, carried by time and memory, touching lives in ways he could never have imagined. Though he was gone, his spirit lived on in every act of generosity, every moment of compassion, and every choice to do good in the face of hardship. In the end, Finn's legacy was not just a story, but a promise that kindness, no matter how small, could change the world. And as the sun set over Glenwick one golden evening, casting its light over the bustling village, the spirit of that promise burned brightly in every heart, ensuring that the flame of compassion would never be extinguished.